The room went dead silent when the doctor finally said the words nobody wanted to hear. There's nothing more we can do. Monitors kept beeping. Machines kept humming. But the billionaire's baby was slipping away. The mother collapsed into a chair, shaking, mascara streaking down her face. The father, a man who owned hospitals, politicians, and half the city, stood frozen. For the first time in his life, money couldn't save him. Specialists from 3 countries had already failed. Private jets, emergency calls, blank checks. Nothing worked. And then, from the corner of the room, a soft voice spoke up. A poor black girl. No badge, no title, no invitation to even be there. Security turned. Nurses frowned. Someone laughed under their breath. This is a restricted area, a doctor snapped. Another whispered, who even let her in? But the girl didn't flinch. She stepped forward, eyes locked on the monitors, and said one sentence that made every doctor in that room stop breathing. If you've ever been ignored because of how you look, if you've ever been told to stay in your place, don't blink, because what she does next changes everything. This didn't happen in a poor neighborhood clinic. This happened in the most expensive private hospital in the city, the kind with marble floors. Armed security and silence so heavy it feels expensive. The baby lying there wasn't just any child. He was the heir to $1 billion empire, and the girl everyone was dismissing. She came from nothing. No money, no connections. No last name that opened doors. What nobody in that room knew was that she had already seen this condition before. Not in textbooks, not in simulations, but in real life, where mistakes cost lives. This story isn't about miracles. It's about arrogance, about class, about how the people you overlook sometimes hold the only answer left, and by the time the monitors flatline, the hospital staff will realize they almost committed the biggest mistake of their careers. Stay with me, because the moment they finally listen to her is the moment everything turns upside down. The emergency room was chaos. Machines beeped nonstop. Doctors rushed in and out. Nurses whispered prayers under their breath, and in the middle of it all lay the billionaire's baby teeny. Fragile, barely breathing, the parent stood frozen. The father, a powerful man who owned hospitals, banks, entire city blocks, stared at the glass wall like money could force a miracle. The mother was sobbing quietly, gripping a designer coat that now felt useless. For the first time in their lives, power meant nothing. A senior doctor stepped forward, his face pale. "We've tried everything," he said carefully. "Multiple specialists. Emergency procedures. Experimental medication." He paused. "There's nothing more we can do." The words hit like a gunshot. The mother collapsed into a chair. The father clenched his fists, his jaw tight not in anger, but fear. The kind of fear no wealth can erase. That's when it happened. From the corner of the room, a soft voice spoke. "Excuse me? I think I can help." Everyone turned. Standing near the wall was a poor black girl, maybe 17 or 18. Worn jacket, old sneakers, nervous eyes. She didn't belong there, or so they thought. A nurse frowned. A doctor scoffed. Security shifted their weight. "Who let her in?" Someone muttered. The girl swallowed hard but didn't step back. "I've seen this before," she said. "Back home." "Babies like this?" The lead doctor laughed, short, sharp, dismissive. "This is a restricted area," he said. "This isn't a place for guesses." Father didn't even look at her, but the girl's eyes were locked on the baby monitor, the breathing pattern. She continued, voice shaking but determined. "It's not what you think. The problem isn't the heart." Now the room went quiet. One doctor snapped enough. Security, but before anyone could move, the monitor let out a long, uneven beep. The baby's vitals dropped again, and suddenly, no one was laughing anymore, because the girl whispered one sentence. That made every doctor freeze. "If you don't change what you're doing right now, that baby won't last 10 minutes. And in that moment, the room had to decide. Ignore the poor black girl, or risk everything to listen. The girl didn't step forward right away. She stood there, half hidden behind the crowd. fingers clenched around the strap of her worn backpack. Eyes locked on the glass wall of the ICU inside that room. Machines were screaming what doctors wouldn't say out loud. The baby's heartbeat was dropping again. A senior doctor snapped, voice sharp, exhausted. "We've tried everything. Ventilation, medication, emergency intervention. Nothing is stabilizing him." The billionaire father slammed his fist into the wall. "I don't care what it costs. Do something." And that's when the room went silent, because the poor black girl whispered barely loud enough to hear, "There is something you haven't tried." Heads turned instantly. Nurses frowned. A resident scoffed under his breath. Security shifted, already preparing to remove her. The lead surgeon looked at her once and dismissed her completely. "And you are?" She swallowed. "I clean rooms here, nights, sometimes days." A laugh escaped from someone in the back, short, cruel, automatic. The surgeon didn't even hide his irritation. "This is a restricted area. Please step away." But the girl didn't move. Her eyes stayed on the monitors. On the baby. On the pattern no one else was noticing. "His oxygen drops every time the ventilator pressure increases," she said quietly. "And then his heart reacts." The room froze again, this time for a different reason. The surgeon turned slowly. "That's already in the chart," she nodded. "But you're treating the symptom, not the cause." Now people were staring. The billionaire father looked at her for the first time not as a nobody, but as a threat to hope. "What cause?" he demanded. The girl hesitated. Because once she said it, there was no going back. "He's not failing because his lungs are weak," she said. "He's failing because his airway is collapsing when the pressure rises. You're suffocating him, trying to save him." The room exploded. "That's impossible," a doctor barked. "You're not trained." "I was," she interrupted softly. "Before my family lost everything. Before I had to clean these floors." Silence. The monitors beeped against lower this time, and suddenly, no one was laughing anymore, because the baby's heartbeat dropped one more time, and this time, it didn't come back on its own. The room went quiet the moment she spoke. Not polite quiet, not respectful quiet, that uncomfortable quiet. The kind where people stop breathing because something they didn't expect just entered the room. The poor black girl stood there barefoot, clutching a thin jacket that clearly wasn't warm enough. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from holding something back. One of the senior doctors glanced at her, annoyed. "Miss, this is a restricted area," he said sharply. "You need to leave." She didn't move. Another nurse whispered security, already reaching for her radio, but the girl lifted her chin. "My name is Aaliyah," she said, voice steady now. "And that baby isn't dying from organ failure?" The billionaire snapped his head toward her. "What did you just say?" He barked. Aaliyah stepped forward, just one step, and suddenly the air felt heavier. "It's not the heart," she continued. "It's not the lungs. And it's not genetic," the lead surgeon scoffed. "You expect us to believe you know something we don't?" Aaliyah swallowed hard. "My little brother collapsed the same way," she said quietly. "Same symptoms, same monitors, same words. There's nothing we can do." That landed. The billionaire's wife froze. Aaliyah's eyes dropped for half a second, then came back up burning. "He died," she said, "because nobody listened." Now the room wasn't laughing. Nobody was scoffing. One doctor leaned forward. "What are you suggesting?" Aaliyah pointed at the IV bag hanging beside the crib. "That medication," she said. "It's reacting with a rare enzyme deficiency. It's starving his brain of oxygen." Silence, then disbelief. "That's impossible," a doctor snapped. "That condition is nearly undocumented," Aaliyah nodded. "I know, because poor kids don't get published." The billionaire felt his knees weaken. Nurse checked the chart again, slowly this time. Another. Doctor's face drained of color. The heart monitor let out a long, uneven beep. Aaliyah spoke fast now. "You need to stop the drip. Now, switch to saline. Cool the body. Give him glucose, not morphine." No one moved. Then the baby saw And, suddenly, every second mattered. The room went dead silent. Not the kind of silence that brings peace, the kind that pressures your chest and makes every breath feel stolen. The heart monitor let out a long, uneven beep. The baby's heartbeat was dropping. The lead doctor swallowed hard, eyes locked on the screen. His jaw tightened not from fear, but from pride. "We follow protocol," he said coldly. "No outside interference." The billionaire father snapped. "Protocol. My child is dying in front of you." The nurses looked between the monitor. And her, the poor black girl, still standing there, hands shaking, voice barely steady. "I know you don't trust me," she said quietly, stepping closer. "But I've seen this before. Not in hospitals and the streets. When help comes too late," the doctor laughed under his breath. "You expect us to risk our licenses based on a guess from someone who doesn't even belong here." The baby's heartbeat stuttered again. Beep, pause, beep longer. Pause. That's when the billionaire did something no one expected. He turned away from the doctors and faced her. "What do you need?" he asked. The room froze. She blinked, shocked. "What? What do you need?" he repeated, louder. "If you're right, tell us now." The lead doctor exploded. "This is insane. If this goes wrong," the billionaire cut him off with a glare sharp enough to end careers. "If this goes wrong," he said slowly, "it's already on you." Another alarm sounded. The baby's oxygen level plunged. The doctor hesitated. And in that hesitation, everyone saw it. He wasn't choosing medicine. He was choosing his ego. The poor black girl stepped forward anyway. "You need to rotate him," she said, pointing at the screen. "The cord is wrapped wrong. If you don't relieve the pressure now, he won't last 2 minutes." The doctor shook his head. "That's not possible." She looked him straight in the eyes. "And you know it." The room waited. Seconds felt like hours. Finally, the doctor whispered, "Prep the table." Gasps filled the room. Nurses rushed into motion. Machines adjusted. Hands moved fast, and for the first time since the crisis began, the billionaire closed his eyes and prayed. The doctor followed her instructions angrily, reluctantly. Then the monitor beeped, stronger, faster, steadier. One nurse covered her mouth. Another whispered, "Oh my God." The baby's heartbeat stabilized. The room exploded into chaos. Disbelief, shock. The doctor stared at the screen like it had betrayed him. He turned slowly toward the girl. "How? Did you know?" She didn't smile. Didn't celebrate. She just said, "Because sometimes the people you ignore are the ones who see the truth first." And right then, everyone realized this wasn't just about saving a baby. This moment had changed the balance of power. It's forever. Because the question was no longer if the child would survive. The real question now was, what happens to the people who almost let him die? The room went quiet in the worst way possible. Not respectful silence. Not hopeful silence. But that cold, hostile silence where egos start fighting for survival. The lead surgeon finally spoke. Voice tight, jaw clenched. "Who exactly do you think you are?" Every eye snapped to the black girl standing near the wall, her clothes cheap, her shoes worn, her hands shaking but not backing down. She swallowed once. "I'm the one who's been watching your monitors since you walked in circles," she said. "And you're about to lose that baby in under 6 minutes." A sharp laugh cut through the room. One of the senior doctors scoffed. "This is insane. Security, please escort her out." 2 guards stepped forward immediately. That's when the billionaire finally looked at her. Really looked. Not as a poor girl. Not as a distraction, but as someone who wasn't afraid of him or anyone in that room. "What did you say?" he asked quietly. The girl didn't flinch. "The oxygen saturation is dropping because you're treating the symptoms, not the cause," she said fast now, urgency bleeding into every word. "The baby isn't crashing. The placenta is." The doctors froze. One of the younger residents glanced at the monitor again. Then again, his face drained of color. That's not possible," he whispered. "But wait," the lead surgeon snapped. "This is a controlled environment, not a street lecture. but the girl stepped forward anyway. "You missed the micro tear," she said, voice sharp now, fearless. "It started 20 minutes ago. The pressure spike confirms it. You have maybe 3 minutes before irreversible damage." Guards hesitated. The billionaire stood up so fast his chair slammed back. "Why should I believe you?" he demanded. She met his eyes, steady, unshaking. "Because I've already seen this exact failure once," she said, "and that baby didn't make it." Silence hit harder than any shout. The monitors beeped louder now, faster. One doctor whispered, "Heart rate's destabilizing." The lead surgeon looked at the screen again, really looked this time, and for the first time, his confidence cracked. "Run the scan," he muttered. A nurse hesitated, then obeyed. The results flashed on the screen. Dead silence. The tear was there, clear, obvious, undeniable. The room exploded into motion. Prep for emergency intervention. "Get me vascular clamps. Now, now." The billionaire turned back to the girl, his voice hoarse. "Who are you?" She didn't smile, didn't celebrate, didn't soften. "I'm the girl you were about to ignore," she said. "And the reason your baby still has a chance?" And as the operating room doors slammed shut again, every single person inside knew one thing. This wasn't over, because saving the baby was only the beginning. What came next would expose egos, secrets, and change who held power in that hospital forever. The room went dead quiet. Not the respectful kind of quiet, the threatened kind. Monitors kept beeping. The baby's oxygen dipped again. Nurses exchanged looks like they were watching a slow-motion crash, and couldn't look away. The head surgeon finally turned toward her, irritation flashing across his face. "This is a sterile operating theater," he snapped. "You're not staff. You're not family. Step back." She didn't move. Instead, she stepped forward. "I said step back." He barked louder, ego flaring. "Security, WAIT," she cut in. Her voice cracked the room like a whip. Every head turned. She swallowed once, steadying herself, eyes locked on the monitors. "You're about to intubate again," she said. "Fast, urgent. And it's going to fail. Again." The surgeon laughed, sharp, dismissive. "And you know this because... what? You watched a video online?" "No," she said quietly. "Because you're treating the symptom, not the cause." Now the room froze. A younger doctor frowned. A nurse's hand paused mid-motion. The billionaire father scoffed. "This is insane. My child is dying, and you're entertaining? She's hypoxic because of a vascular anomaly," the girl said, words pouring out now. "Not respiratory failure. You're flooding the lungs while the heart can't compensate." The surgeon's smile vanished. "Who told you that?" he demanded. "No one," she replied. "I recognized the pattern." Silence. The monitors dipped again, sharper this time. The baby's alarm screamed. The surgeon cursed under his breath. "Prep for emergency bypass." "That'll kill him," she shot back. "His vessels are too fragile." The room erupted, doctors talking over each other. Nurses scrambling. The father shouting. Security stepping closer. And in the middle of the chaos, the poor black girl. The room went dead quiet. Monitors still beeped. Machines still hummed. But every single person in that operating room felt it. The shift. The poor black girl stood frozen for half a second after speaking, like she'd just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from certainty, because she knew something they didn't. The lead surgeon scoffed first, shaking his head. "This is not a classroom," he snapped. "Step away from the patient." But before anyone could move her, the heart monitor stuttered. Once, twice, then dropped again. A sharp act. Alarm sliced through the air. Nurses scrambled. One doctor cursed under his breath. Another shouted dosage changes that made no sense anymore. The billionaire father slammed his fist against the glass wall outside the OR, his voice breaking as he screamed his child's name. And then the girl spoke again, louder this time. If you do that, he won't make it, she said. You're treating the symptoms, not the cause. That stopped them. Not because they respected her. Not because they believed her. But because she was right. One of the younger residents stared at the scans again, his face draining of color. He zoomed in, tilted his head, then whispered something no one expected to hear. Wait. She's seeing the obstruction. The lead surgeon spun around. What? The resident swallowed hard. It's not where we thought. It's deeper. If we continue like this, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The room exploded into chaos. But not the kind they'd had before. This was different. This was panic mixed with realization. The surgeon's jaw tightened. His pride was bleeding out faster than the child. Who taught you this? He demanded, staring at the girl like she'd just betrayed the entire system. She hesitated, then answered quietly, My mother died because no one listened. That hit harder than any alarm. For the first time, the doctors weren't looking at a poor girl. They were looking at a truth they'd ignored their entire careers. The billionaire father watched through the glass, confused then, hopeful as the entire surgical plan changed in real time. New instruments were called for. Old assumptions were thrown away. And the girl? She wasn't pushed out. She was pulled closer. As the surgeon finally gave the order to proceed her way, said something that tasted like defeat. Do it, before it's too late. And in that moment, with one decision, one voice, I'd ignored life finally heard, everything changed. Because if this worked, the doctors would have to answer for every time it didn't.
The room goes dead silent. Not the calm kind of silent. The heavy, choking silence where everyone suddenly realizes they might be on the wrong side of history. The machines around the baby are still beeping, but weaker now. Time is running out. The lead doctor finally turns to the poor black girl. His voice isn't arrogant anymore. It's tight, controlled, nervous. Explain, he says, exactly what you know now. Every nurse leans in. The billionaire father looks at her like she's the last door in a burning building. She steps forward, hands shaking but eyes steady. She doesn't speak like someone guessing. She speaks like someone who's been here before. She points at the monitor. The oxygen levels aren't the real problem, she says. The baby's body is rejecting the treatment you're giving because you're treating the symptom, not the cause. The doctors exchange looks. The room went dead silent. Every monitor was still beeping. Every nurse stood frozen. Every doctor knew something had shifted, and it couldn't be undone. The baby was alive, not just breathing, stabilizing. Heart rate climbing, oxygen holding, color slowly returning. And the only reason was the poor black girl they almost kicked out. The lead surgeon swallowed hard. His hands were shaking now. Who taught you that procedure? He asked, his voice barely steady. The girl didn't smile, she didn't celebrate. She looked at the child, then at the doctors, and said quietly, My mother died because doctors said there was nothing they could do. I promised myself I'd never accept that sentence again. That hit harder than any slap. A nurse gasped. Another doctor turned away, ashamed. Then the hospital director walked in and summoned. The room didn't erupt in cheers. It went dead silent. The machine steadied. The baby's chest rose, then rose again. A weak cry cut through the tension like a blade. The same doctors who said, There's nothing we can do, were now frozen, staring at the monitors in disbelief. Because the child was alive, and everyone in that room knew one thing. It wasn't because of them. The poor black girl slowly stepped back, her hands shaking, her clothes stained, her face pale. No cameras, no applause, no pride in her eyes. Only exhaustion, one doctor finally whispered. Who taught you that? She swallowed hard. My mother, she said. She cleaned operating rooms for 20 years. I watched, I listened, I learned, but no one ever let me speak. That's when the billionaire father broke down completely. He dropped to his knees in front of her. A man who owned skyscrapers. A man feared in boardrooms. A man doctors bowed to, now begging a girl society ignored. I judged you, he said through tears. We all did. I thought money and titles made people valuable. He looked at his child, alive, breathing. You saved my son, and when everyone else chose their ego, The hospital administration tried to spin it, tried to bury the story, tried to protect reputations, but it was too late. Footage leaked. Witnesses spoke. The truth spread like wildfire. The doctors who refused to listen, suspended, investigated, some never practiced again. The hospital launched emergency reforms, mandatory bias training, new protocols, open reporting. And the girl, she was offered scholarships, training, opportunities. She refused the spotlight. "I didn't do it for fame," she said quietly. "I did it because a life was dying, and no one cared enough to listen." The billionaire made one final move. He funded a medical program in her name, for people without degrees, without money, without voices, but with knowledge the world refuses to see. And every year he tells the same story. "My son is alive today because the poorest person in the room was the only one brave enough to speak." Moral burned into everyone watching. Never confuse poverty with ignorance. Never confuse status with wisdom. And never ignore a voice just because it doesn't come from power. Because sometimes the person you overlook is the only one who can save everything.